Good morning, everyone. Really great to see you all here. I even see some people who participated in the Odyssey Hackathon with IOTA last year as well, so that's great to have you here as well. Uh, yeah, my name is David Fijter. I'm from the IOTA Foundation, and today I will talk a little bit about what IOTA is, what the IOTA Foundation is, and what we can do to support you during your Odyssey. So let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about the economy of things. Something we want to work towards. You have all these solar panels on roofs, you have cars standing on the road. They don't talk to one another. They're not being utilized 90% of the time. They're not being used efficiently. We want to enable physical world coming together with the digital realm. And we want to do this this is already happening, of course, but yeah, there are some problems with that. Many incidents all around. It's not all that safe all the time. It's very centralized. What causes this? Well, we're building on flawed principles. So first of all, you don't own your device. You get a device by Google or by Amazon, and it's basically owned by Amazon. If Amazon decides to shut down their service, it's useless. If you don't have internet, no cloud, it's not smart anymore. You can use it maybe as a speaker, and that's it. And it's also a proprietary software, so oftentimes not open sourced. You can't easily detect flaws in security, and which is the case with open source. And it has a lot of single point of failures. If a service goes down, the whole system doesn't work anymore. So how do we fix it with our network of trust? What is needed to enable this network of trust? First of all, computation. You need devices. We already got these. Second of all, payments. If you want to have machines talk to other machines and pay them for other services, they need to be able to pay for those services, of course. And in order to enable this, you need to have zero fees. This is very important, otherwise you can't do micropayments efficiently. It also needs to be real time. You don't want to wait for your payments. And of course the machines will have to be able to send out these payments. And trust is also very important as well. Am I speaking to an actual machine by an actual manufacturer? Is the security okay? Does the machine have a self-sovereign identity? Privacy is important as well. So what about machine-to-machine payments and trust? Well, this is something we are trying to solve with the IOTA Foundation. We're a non-profit foundation based in Berlin, but we're actually spread out over the whole world. We have over 120 employees in many countries working all together. We received a lot of funding through the community, and we're focused on the technical and regulatory challenges of cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology. So there are several important puzzle pieces we want to solve. First of all, there's technology, making this all happen in a peer-to-peer network, which is truly decentralized. The governance, who owns what data, who has access, who can do things with the data, and we want to have a great ecosystem as well. This system will only work if everyone works together towards standards and works together to make this happen. So these are things we are trying to solve. So we're working towards the economy of things. We want to grow a vibrant and engaged open source community, build a decentralized and self-regulated peer-to-peer network, and we want to achieve adoption and real-world implementation. These are the main goals we're working towards, and we're doing this by these four things. First, by research. So everything we want to do needs to be theoretically worked out well by our research team. So we don't make theoretical mistakes before we implement it. Second of all, technology. We need to develop the software you can use to use the protocol to achieve these things. Then there's education. We want to make sure that you have all the resources you need to work with this. And there's standardization as well, probably one of the most important ones. We want to make sure that IOTA becomes a globally adopted standard. Everyone can use open standards that make sure that all the devices can talk to one another. It doesn't matter if you're a thing or a human. And we want to do this by enabling co-creation. So we work together with the ecosystem and the IOTA Foundation to make this happen. We have a lot of community contributions from our ecosystem. We want to be fully transparent about this, so we want to involve the ecosystem as much as possible with this. I'll talk about this a little bit later. And of course, we want to be fully decentralized. No one should rely on the central entity for all of this. No single owner. Your data is your data. So let's talk a little bit about one of our solutions, basically the IOTA Tangle. What is the IOTA Tangle? Well, you could see of it as a third generation of a distributed ledger technology. First you had Bitcoin, which was like payments. It was first of its kind, and it enabled payments, a bit slow, didn't do a lot more. Then you got Ethereum, which enabled things like smart contracts. Pretty cool. Also not very scalable to this point. And then we came with the IOTA Tangle, which is basically focused on the Internet of Things. You won't be able to enable the Internet of Things with 15 transactions per second. So we came up with a complete new model. So why isn't the blockchain fit for the Internet of Things? Well, if you know how the blockchain works, you have blocks which are mined. There's a chain, so a block follows one other block, and there's always a little bit of time in between. Only a certain amount of transactions fit within a block. So what happens if the amount of transactions is higher as the block can fit? You will get the consensus bottleneck, as you can see here. Basically, only the transactions that pay the highest fees will end up in the winning block. This means that if the network gets utilized more, the fees will be higher, and it will take longer for your transaction to get through unless you pay a very big fee, defeating a lot of purposes. So how do we solve this? We basically don't use a blockchain or miners. If you interact with the IOTA Tangle, you directly put a transaction inside our Tangle, and the only thing you need to do is you have to validate 2 previous transactions. By doing this, you actually contribute to the network, saying, okay, these 2 transactions are correct according to me, and you're basically replacing the miner's job in this case. This allows us to have 0 fees, so you don't even need to buy an IOTA coin. Even if you post 1 million transactions to the Tangle, no fees are needed. This makes working with it a lot easier as well. Of course, it's immutable data transfer. It's a lot more scalable as blockchain. This is an always evolving process, so we're working on new node software that will allow more TPS, etc., etc. Then we will get sharding. I think we're currently, with our main node software at 40 transactions per second. We're already running in beta with our new node software with many hundreds or even thousands of transactions per second, and with sharding that should be close to unlimited, so to say. We're also looking at quantum resistance. So our signature scheme makes sure that the transactions are quantum resistant. If quantum computers ever come into play, this won't be a direct threat for the IOTA transactions. So in this case, it's a lot different than most regular blockchains. So you would say maybe the fees are low. Why does it make sense to have 0 fees? Well, if you issue 1 transaction per day, it's not a big of a deal. But if you have a smart meter throughout the whole of the Netherlands that send data to the providers every day, you will have millions of transactions per day. With Ethereum or Bitcoin, that would cost you an immense amount of money. It's not really viable to do this for these energy companies. But if you don't have these fees, you can just have these devices and it won't cost you anything extra. So I think that's a great enabler to make machine economy possible. Basically what we're trying to do with IOTA and the IOTA Foundation is to close the gap between the technology enthusiasts and the visionaries, basically crossing the chasm towards the more pragmatistic people, conservative skeptics, basically working towards real adoption of this technology instead of just proof of concept. As I mentioned before, standardization is really important for us. We want everyone to know about this standard and want to work towards the same language, so everything can work with one another. We're working together with the object management group. Their involvement makes sure that good standards are being produced. They did the standardization for UML, for example, as well. And we expect the first standardized results of this year. So what areas are we focusing on with IOTA? Well, you can do a lot with IOTA. These are just a couple of examples of what you can do. And I will go into more detail about those in the next few slides. So you can think of telecom, payment, settlements, data sharing. Mobility, it's a very important one for IOTA because there are so many use cases possible. I will go into more detail in the next couple of slides. Our digital economy, machine-to-machine economy, human-to-machine economy, human-to-human economy, also biometric identification, digital identity, data marketplaces, etc. Smart cities, so this goes very much into the machine economy thing. Supply chains, tracking of data, social impact, so making things for the good. Digital identities, humanitarian identities, financial inclusion. So we're working together with real-world entities to make this happen. So we're having several test beds with huge corporations, governments, smart cities. So this is not just theoretical, we're already trying this out in the real world. We have, for example, Jaguar Land Rover working in Ireland with a test bed where they have cars that have a wallet. I will talk about what you could use that for in a bit. But also whole smart cities working with IOTA to track their energy, make peer-to-peer energy grids. Really cool stuff. So one cool example of what you could use IOTA for is autonomous economic agents. So we already have an economy where you pay for your car, right? You want to charge your car, you have this RFID card, which is very insecure, but that's another story. You want to charge your car, you hold your car through the machine, and you pay for the transaction. But what if your car can just have its own wallet and can pay for itself? You just give it some initial funds, and it will pay for its parking, it will pay for its charging, it will pay for toll booths, for maintenance even. But the other way around, what if the car could make its own money? What if you can rent out your car, for example? Or even better, what if you can use your electric car to help balance the grid? You basically rent out your battery of your car to make sure that the peak power needed in the main grid can be handled more efficiently, and your car will receive money for this. So that's a cool way for a car to earn itself back in some ways. And the great thing about this is you don't really have to do anything about this. You just make sure your car is plugged in and it will work on its own. Another example with cars is the smart charging case. So with the traditional blockchain, you can think of something like a smart contract between a charger and a car. With IOTA, we work a little bit more simplistic because we don't have any fees and we can allow microtransactions and fast transactions. We can just say, okay, here's 5 cents for charging. The charger starts charging. Another transaction is issued for the next 5 cents, etc., etc. And the moment the charger stops charging or the car stops paying, the charging is stopped. You don't overpay and you don't need anything as complex as a smart contract. This allows for very easy implementation of certain use cases. So let's talk a bit more about the smart energy. You have a nice neighborhood here. What if we can enable a peer-to-peer energy grid in this neighborhood? So you can buy energy from your neighbor's solar panels, or your neighbor can store his energy in your power wall because your power wall is always empty and you don't have the capacity of your own solar panels to fill this. What if your neighbor's car can be charged with your solar panels, etc.? You can bypass the main grid. You can be self-sustainable in a way even. This is all very futuristic, but it's not something we don't want to focus on. I think it's really in the spirit of the Odyssey Hackathon as well. So we have some cool demonstrations about how you could achieve this as well available. You can look at the blueprint for this on docs.iota.org. Well, the smart charging case I just showed you with the micropayments that allows for way more easy way to do stuff like this. We already have a IOTA-based charging station in the Netherlands as a test bed with ILAT-NL. So if you have an electric vehicle, you can drive to Arnhem right now and charge it with IOTA. And you can also enable things like energy certificates. So if you can prove that you actually created this energy with your solar panels, you can actually issue these renewable energy certificates in a tamper-proof ledger, and you can share those, make money with that even. So this is an example of our peer-to-peer energy trading demo. Instead of having just the grid operator as the provider of energy, you can have other producers as well. You can basically have consumers. Everyone can communicate with one another and balance out the grid in some way. You can ask consumers to, for example, stop their expensive as if they will turn down their refrigerator for 30 minutes if a peak moment is coming up, rewarding them with some IOTA. This will allow the electric grid to handle peak moments better, and it's just a way more efficient way to work with the power grid we have available. And this demo is available in our blueprints on the docs website. So if you are doing anything in one of the energy tracks, definitely have a look at this. Another cool thing you can use IOTA for is the supply chain, global trade. So about 10% of every item in a supply chain is fraudulent or lost. That's a huge amount of waste as well. It's very intransparent. It all works with paper documents. There's a lack of trust, so it's a great use case for using a distributed ledger technology. With IOTA, because of the zero fees, you can very easily have an immutable data audit trail. It won't cost you anything. You have multiple participants. You can have a digital identity for these people, so you can actually know that the update is coming from the actual authority that's issuing it. You can upload documents to the Tangle, have them authorized, make sure that they haven't been tampered with. You can implement a track and trace solution with multiple providers. We have several good blueprints for this. So if you're doing anything with the tracks like the KLM cargo track or the TVM track for the recyclables, definitely have a look at this. We have the blueprints hosted on docs.iota.org as well. We have a trade demo on tradedemo.iota.org which demonstrates this, and we also have a future farm demo which is kind of similar, where you can see how grass actually becomes a glass of milk, and have a full track of this whole cycle. This is an example of the track and trace demo in our documents, blueprints. So here you can see that the container is announced by the shipper, the forwarder gates it in, container is cleared for export by customs. Documents can be attached, so you can have official and signed documents by the authorities. This is all transparent and ownerless. So once it's in the Tangle, it isn't on some obscure server by a single party. No one can tamper with this. It adds a lot of transparency and trust in the whole supply chain process. Industrial Internet of Things. So connected factories. There are a lot of factories with overcapacity. They don't work at full capacity. A lot of them are automated, but they're not really working together. But what if you can have things like a digital twin for your products? Say you have a car, and that car has a digital twin. So basically every component of that car is stored in the immutable ledger with things like manufacture date, batch, and if a part is replaced by someone from maintenance, that audit trail, the digital twin, is updated. So you will know the complete history of a car looking at this digital twin in the Tangle. This will also allow algorithms to detect, based on faulty batches, etc., when a car will need maintenance. This will allow you to have things like cars that won't break down anymore, because it's already predicted when a certain part is about to fail, and they can be maintained before it happens. Another thing we have when it comes to industrial IoT is our decentralized industry marketplace. This is a really cool concept where you can basically get together with other capacity and lease out your production to the highest bidder. I will talk to that in one of the next slides. We also have a regular data marketplace in our blueprints as well. We use this, for example, to sell out your data. Say, for example, you have a weather station at home. You can say, okay, I want to sell my weather data on the IOTA ledger. You sign up for the data marketplace. You send your temperature sensor data every 5 minutes to the Tangle. And people who want to use this data can actually buy your data stream. And they can do so en masse. So if I want to do something with temperature around the globe, I can just buy data streams of temperature from all around the world. I pay a small amount of IOTA for that data, so the provider actually gets supported by that, and I have a big set of data which I don't have to gather myself by deploying sensors myself. This is a completely open source available blueprint which you can use to build something similar like this. So that's worth a look at as well. So the industrial marketplace I was just talking about, it's a vendor and industry neutral platform for communication. Basically you request something from a product and you get the results back from what's available around you with prices and their attributes. How does this work? Well, first of all, digital identity, self-sovereign identity, is not just for humans, it's also for devices, for things. A car can have a verifiable credential by its manufacturer that it's actually a legit product when it was created, also truly authenticated, so you know that when you're buying something, it's actually the product you're actually buying. The attributes in the data marketplace are based on the E-class standard. I'm not sure if you're aware with the standard, but what E-class does is basically they give standardized attributes to almost everything you know. So if I want to have a microphone or your electric toothbrush, I can find the attributes on E-class on the end there. Here we have the example of a vehicle charger. This vehicle charger has a brand, it has a charging voltage, cables included, connection type, etc. So if I want to charge my electric car around here, I will just ask for electric chargers in the Hague area. I want to have the cables included because I forgot them. They need to have my connection type. I don't want the slow chargers because I want to leave before tonight. And the cable length needs to be at least 3 meters. And then it will just give back all the chargers that are available with their prices around the area. And they can adjust their prices based on their availability or overcapacity. If there's, for example, an electric charger powered by solar power and it's nice weather outside today, it might offer me a better tariff than when it's less good weather for that. So I think that's really cool. And because there are no fees, we can keep track of every step in the way, and every cent you put into the service actually arrives at the customer or at the supplier of the service. So this is a really great way for factories to rent out their overcapacity, but also for consumers that have, or prosumers that have things to rent out, like energy or chargers. So let's talk a bit about digital identity. We already had a great talk about this morning by Christopher. I'm not sure if you saw it, but it really pointed out why we need a self-sovereign digital identity. It's one of the biggest promises of a distributed ledger technology, and we're trying to make it happen as well with IOTA. It's crucial to connect the digital world and the physical world together. Make sure that you're not talking to some bot instead of a car. but also it's not just for the Internet of Things. Oftentimes it's said IOTA is only for Internet of Things, but it's also for human interaction. It's just focusing on Internet of Things, but it can just as well be used for your own digital identity. And its lightweight architecture is really great for facilitating this. So what do we have to provide you with this digital identity? We already have a self-sovereign digital identity solution according to the W3C specifications, as mentioned in the talk by Christopher as well. It's currently only a first version based on TypeScript library, but it's already working and being used in several test cases. If you want, you can build your own self-sovereign identity solution in your product right now with this library. You're just dependent on using JavaScript/TypeScript for it. We're working, of course, on a full solution included in our client libraries, all our client libraries as well, if you're using some other programming language. Our self-sovereign identities are built into our new version of our wallet as well, Trinity 2.0. This will take a little bit of time to develop, but it's a fully open source, very user-friendly way for humans to manage their own self-sovereign identity. Basically, you keep your own self-sovereign identity on your computer, on your mobile phone. It's your data, no one else gets it, and you can decide on what you want to share with who you want to share it. Because this is taking a while, we're also working on a small standalone mobile application to facilitate this on your mobile phone, and we are really aiming to release this before the Odyssey Hackathon as well. So if you want to do anything with self-sovereign identity, that could be a huge, awesome demonstration to show how you can share your digital identity with a mobile phone and use it over the IOTA network. So last year we had 2 tracks working on digital identity based on IOTA. And they both won their track. One of the winners actually is leading this project right now for the IOTA Foundation, so that's really cool. He will be there to support at the Odyssey Hackathon as well, so we have some real experience in that process. And this is very useful for a lot of tracks. It adds a lot of trust to things, to humans, if you can issue verifiable credentials. So if you want to do anything with this digital identity, have a look at our library, which is hosted on GitHub, or one of our blog posts about this. So what do we have available to you? Well, first of all, our networks. We have our main network, which holds the value tokens at this moment. You can use that, no problem, 0 fees. You can use it right away. You might want to use your own node or a public one. However, if you're developing, you might not want to set up a node. You might want to have some tokens to work with to try things out. For this, we have our testnet. We have a load-balanced a solution here, so you don't have to set up your own development nodes. Very easy to get started with. And we have a faucet that gives you free tokens to do value transactions with to try it out. But maybe for the Odyssey Hackathon, something else is even more interesting, and that is setting up your own private IOTA Tangle. There's a one-comment solution for this. You basically issue a single command, and you will have a local IOTA network running on your machine. It can work offline, doesn't matter. You have full capacity on the network, even if Wi-Fi drops out. So this might be a great solution for the Odyssey Hackathon. You can find this solution in the documentation as well. And yeah, I think that's one of the best solutions for Odyssey as well. We had some issues last year with some Wi-Fi issues, so maybe this can be handled better this year with this offline Tangle. Doesn't really matter what kind of language you're using. Most mainstream languages are supported. We have actively maintained C, Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, Go, and Python libraries. Those are officially created and maintained by the IOTA Foundation. We're working on a Rust implementation. C++ and .NET are made by the community, so those are available as well. You don't need any coins to work with this, so if you want to issue your first transaction today, you can do this. You just need a programming language, a client library, and you can get going. The common use case examples are explained in specific workshops. So all the official client libraries have a workshop attached to them, where you can see examples about most simplistic stuff like sending transactions, receiving transactions, sending value, using data streams to send and receive data streams, listening to the full transaction of the Tangle throughout 0 ohm queue. that kind of stuff. Another thing we have is masked authenticated messaging. These are the message streams I talked to you about. Basically, you send a entry point of your message to someone. This can either be a public one or a private one. So you can either decide, I make a public message stream which everyone can read, or I want to share it with just a select amount of people. So I send them a protected one, which they can only access with the right keys. This allows you to send data over the Tangle over the public Tangle, which isn't meant to be public at all. So you can send private data over public Tangle, which is pretty cool. We currently have a JavaScript Rust-based implementation only, but we just finished a complete new implementation of masked authenticated messaging, which will be embedded in every client library as well. So this will be very easy to work with. And this can be used for a lot of examples. A lot of the blueprints we have use this as well. You just need to listen to a certain address, and every follow-up message will just show up there if you use one of these libraries. Very cool to use for a lot of use cases. If you want to do anything with value transactions, and you want to do anything with value transactions for a lot of people, you could use iotahub. This is the solution used by all the exchanges as well, or at least most exchanges are using it or switching to it. It's like a programmable wallet, so you can manage the funds of many accounts. You can create accounts, create deposit addresses, send transactions, receive transactions. It takes care of all the complexities for you, so you don't have to think about complex things like reattachments or swiping all your funds into a single account if you want that. This all handles it for you. It's based in C++, but it exposes a RESTful API, so you can just use any programming language you want to interact with this, and this is basically a shortcut to make it easy to do a lot of value transfers on the Tangle without having to think about all the technicalities. If you're doing anything with value in the Tangle and at many users, definitely look at this, especially for the Odyssey Hackathon, since you have a limited amount of time to work on this. Probably the most important thing we have is our documentation and the blueprints. Basically, everything we have is in our documentation or a reference to it in our documentation. So if you want to know exactly what we all have, I mean, 45 minutes is not enough to cover everything we have, but I think I showed what's most important for the Odyssey Hackathon tracks that I've seen. You can find it on docs.iota.org. If you want to remember one URL, remember this one because it leads to everything else. And our blueprints are hosted there as well. So I showed some of the blueprints really quickly just now. For example, the data marketplace, the peer-to-peer energy grid, and the track and trace use case. You can also think about data storage on external platforms validated by the Tangle. So the IOTA Tangle is not really suitable for storing big documents or anything. But what you can do is you can store your documents somewhere else. This can even be AWS S3 or interplanetary file system, but still use the Tangle to validate that document and make sure that that document hasn't been tampered with and has been uploaded at a certain date or has been signed by a certain authority. Document immutability as well, proof of existence. You can find demos of this in the blueprints. Most of them have real demos as well hosted, so you can try them out before you actually build something on this. These can be great entry points for the Odyssey Hackathon. Like I said, you only have limited amount of time, and a lot of that time is just validating your concept with a lot of people. So to actually build the product, you probably only have a day. Have a look at these blueprints because they will save you a lot of time if you can use them. So the things to come for IOTA that are not at this moment available. More performant node software. We have a new Hornet Go-based node software, which is looking very, very promising. You can already use it right now. It's in beta. We're looking to support this officially very soon. It's being audited. So I think that's a really good way to have more performant node software and have a higher TPS. You can already run your private Tangle completely with this software and have hundreds or thousands of transactions per second. We're working on a more improved version of the IOTA protocol, basically taking our learnings from the past years implementing stuff like switching from trinary to binary, having reusable addresses, but also better signature schemes, which allows us to have faster transactions, more transactions. We basically want to work on better performance, sharding, and having it fully decentralized. We want to make more building blocks to make it even easier to use IOTA. So we want to make more easier to use APIs, more libraries to use for you. Basically, we want to have any developer, regardless of any DLT experience, to be able to use some simple commands and utilize the Tangle, even if they don't know what's all behind it. We're also working behind the scenes on smart contracts and distributed computing. We don't have this right now, but this is in the works. And if you're interested in any of this, which the future will bring, please check out our roadmap on roadmap.iota.org, which will fully explain everything we're working on right now in terms of research and technology, and the time frames you're looking at. So if you want to do something with some of this and you don't know if you can use it in time for the Odyssey Hackathon, please check out our roadmap. So last year we were there as well with IOTA to support the teams using it. I think it was a great success. 8 out of the 100 teams who participated were using IOTA technology in 6 different tracks. Of those 6 different tracks, 3 were won. So I think that's a great success, and it really shows that you can easily implement something with IOTA, something useful. And of course, we want to do it even better this year. So if you're thinking about using IOTA at this hackathon, ask me your questions, pitch me your use cases. I will be here all day. So how will we support your hackathon, Odyssey Hackathon this year? We will be there again with some highly skilled Jedis to support you. But we also have our complete network of 120 plus IOTA Foundation, very specialized experts available around the globe, which we can contact at your request for certain very specific use cases. So if you need someone who's very proficient in digital identity, or someone who knows a lot about supply chains, we can get you in contact with those either before or during the hackathon. We also have a very active Discord server with around 30,000 members on it, active community members. And we have an Odyssey Hackathon channel there as well. So if you're looking for a team to work with based on IOTA, join this channel, ask your questions there. I will be hanging out there as well. So if you need any support from the IOTA Foundation or validation for your problems beforehand, you can check it out there. Very important channel to join if you want to prepare for this. So if you have any questions, I will be here all day. Ask me anything, doesn't matter, even if it's not IOTA related. If you come up with anything else, join me on the IOTA Discord. Just go to discord.iota.org. You will get an invite, and you can join the discussion. There's always a lot of active community members as well as the IOTA Foundation to help you out. You can of course contact me anytime on Discord or send me an email. My email address is right there. And yeah, I really hope you all have a great Odyssey, and I hope to see you all in April in Groningen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. We still have 5 minutes left, so maybe you're open to do some questions from the audience. Yes? Okay, here you go.
Any questions?
Let's start there.
Hi, thank you for a great talk. I am wondering a little bit with 0 fees and free to transact data and transmit data as much as you want. How do you prevent spam from happening on the network?
That's a good question. So we currently don't have a very good protection against that. But we're working towards, like I said, we're working towards improving the protocol, making a 2.0 version of IOTA, basically. This is all described on coordesite.iota.org. And here we have a mechanism called mana, which basically gives out reputation to certain nodes and applying rate limits to those nodes, which will allow more active. It's a kind of hybrid proof of work, proof of stake. The more tokens flowing through your node, the more trust your node gains by its neighbors, and the less of a rate limit it will have. So this is active spam protection, which we're working towards. At the current network, there's not a lot limiting to you to do a lot of spam. We currently implement proof of work. This is just proof of work as an anti-spam measure. But yeah, with a lot of computing power, you can, of course, overload the network if you want right now.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Hi, René, architect. I develop a solar energy building which is zero emission, and I want to co-finance the installation by carbon credits, and that by a wallet, and the wallet owned by the building. Is then iotahub a solution, or is that in a different way that in case you have wallets, you could put it in this iotahub instrument?
Yeah, you want to issue carbon credits.
To trade it either by the emission trade system or by NGOs, including.
Yeah, so Hub is basically made for sending and receiving IOTA tokens. So it's not really for something else, but for the financial transaction, you can definitely use Hub and issue the carbon credits towards the IOTA protocol itself.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed you've already registered Did Tangle as a decentralized identifier, and that there's a library.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be ready for use in the hackathon? You said it's an alpha. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
curious how stable that is.
Well, it's an alpha. Like it's still it's a working condition. It's being used in several of our demonstration use cases right now. You can use it right now to issue digital identifiers, self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials. So that's all great, but it's only available in TypeScript right now, and the API might change over the coming months because it's still in development. Not all the features are implemented there that we want, but the basic features you need to issue digital identifiers are available there. If you have any questions about the technicalities of this, like I said, last year's Odyssey track winner is now leading this project, and I can get you in contact with him to for any specific questions about what's implemented and not. But it should be usable for sure.
And then the last question.
Can I? Okay. Thank you, Dave. In a scenario in which I would like to interface several sensors already installed in a warehouse with the Tangle, is a full node compulsory? Is it mandatory? I mean, do I need to?
Yeah. So you need a node to interact with the. It's like your entry point into the network. You could use a public node, but you always rely on this public node, and this public node can decide to go offline. Or can decide to apply a rate limit to you if you use a lot of transactions. So basically, if you are serious about sending these transactions to the Tangle, the best way to go is run your own node. We're making this easier and easier all the time. It's like a single executable right now to do this.
Is it possible? Does it run on STM?
You could run it on STM, but it's not really a great solution for it. Basically, you want the node to be a little bit heavier. But you can use clients on IOTA clients on STM, their libraries for that, for sure.